Hey, welcome back to the National Parents Union. Today, well, first I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Kelly Williams-Bollard, and today I have a wonderful, wonderful guest, and this is The Parent Effect. Let me tell you guys a little bit about her. I have her bio, so I'm going to read it. This is attorney Corey Minor-Smith. She is a leader in social justice space with a primary focus on mental health and wellness advocacy in communities across the nation. Smith produces radio roundtable conversations with youth and community members to discuss ways to reduce the stigma associated with mental illness. In addition, she has served as a keynote speaker at numerous national and international gatherings. She was a panelist during the Housing and Development Law Institute conference in Washington, D.C. Smith also presented in Cape Town, South Africa, during the Southern African Housing Foundation Conference as a delegate of the United States. After being directly involved in the mental health industry for over 20 years, Smith is a highly sought after speaker and has been featured at conferences on numerous panels, TV talk shows such as Sister Circle. I love that show, by the way. Radio programs like The Breakfast Club, podcast series, XM programs as an advocate for funding and research, services, and treatment for those living with severe mental illness. I am so excited. Corey, are you there? Attorney Corey, are you there? Let's see.
Okay, my bad. I'm unmuted now.
No, you're great. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm so excited to have you on for the next half an hour. You're going to give us all this great information, and I'm just excited. So how have you been doing during all this pandemic? And kind of like, you sound like you're a world traveler. So, you know, you've been kind of had to stay grounded.
I love to travel. But you know, this pandemic has us on lockdown right now, and I'm just rather be safe and use it as a time to reflect, be introspective, and just think about what I'm gonna do and how I'm gonna move forward as we get through this thing, you know? So absolutely thinking about those who have lost their jobs, who, you know, don't know about the resources that are available in the community or never had to use them, you know, like food pantries and things of that nature. And unfortunately, in our community, there being a disproportionate number of individuals who've been impacted directly with COVID by getting COVID, whether it's by having underlying health conditions or just, you know, at this point, we don't know anybody is subject to getting it. So we just have to be as careful as possible, you know, just be careful and be safe. Wear your mask.
Just wear your mask, okay?
Wear your mask, please.
That's right. Please be diligent and wear that mask. I want to talk about, you know, you're an attorney. And so let's just talk a little bit briefly about that. What made you, first of all, tell me, what made you want to become an attorney?
Wow, 3 specific things, quite honestly. I was about 16 years old when I was in the court system, the family court system. My mother lives with severe mental illness, and ultimately it led to me being in the family court system and my grandmother taking me in. But that day when we were scheduled to go to court, I was excited. Like, I wanted to go. I wanted to know, you know, what happens, who wears the black robe, who are these people in the suits? And the unfortunate part of it is that they never called us to the courtroom. And we just sat out in the hallway, and the court decided my life with us out in the hallway. So that intrigued and piqued my interest to know more about the justice system, you know, legal system. And then in high school, I was assigned to a different court, same area in Canton, Ohio. And there I was assigned to a judge's chambers and had the opportunity to work with the judge, you know, find out who those people are in the suits. And I knew then I wanted to be an attorney. But what really solidified it was getting pulled over by the police. And for me, it wasn't a nice encounter. However, at the same time, I think back on it and I think, thank God that it wasn't an encounter like Sandra Bland. I was able to leave the scene that day. She left the scene, but has not come out of their custody alive. But just having these encounters of being pulled over by the police, and they can not be good, you know, and I felt mine wasn't. I felt that I was talked to in a manner that was unnecessary, disrespectful, even though I was younger, I was much younger. But at the same time, I knew then I wanted to know my rights. And I said I was going to law school, learn my rights, and come back home and tell everybody else what their rights were.
That's
So
right.
that solidified it for me. I knew then for sure I wanted to become a lawyer.
That's beautiful. That is so beautiful. And it's amazing that you said that, because like I work in a classroom and I tell the students all the time, especially our young Black men, but the girls too. I always tell them, we have to know the law. Like they don't really emphasize that in our classrooms. That's not part of our curriculum. And it needs to be in depth of our curriculum. I mean, Ohio, I understand we have a huge book, the Black Law book, and I know it's a lot, but just to understand the basics of it will get you home, like you said.
Right. And that's important, especially with organizations like the NAACP, because there are different, there's different information that organization provides to let you know how to encounter the police appropriately. And many times you may not get talked to, in a respectful way, but you can't deal with it out there on the street. You just have to remain as respectful as you can and try to, get your ticket if that's what's going to happen. But the ultimate big picture is that you're going to get home safely. And just having children, I have sons, and just having that conversation. I don't know any other ethnic group or racial group that has that conversation with their children, what they need to do, how they need to behave, how they need to dress whenever they leave the house. You can't, please don't wear your hoodie. I know it's fashionable. I want to wear my hoodie on my head, but don't wear the hoodie, don't gather in groups outside, and that's a shame because those are your friends. You should be able to talk to your friends outside, but unfortunately it just causes some kind of concern, some kind of suspicion, whereas other groups aren't subjected to that. And so the big picture though, is just talk to your children, because there's a lot of stuff they're not going to learn in school. And it's important for us as parents to teach all that we can, rely on organizations like the NAACP, the Urban League, and others that provide this information on a national basis to help us to just be as safe as possible, and ultimately making sure that our civil rights are recognized and acknowledged. And
That's right. Now you said you have sons. How many do you have and what's their ages?
Sure. I have two sons. One is 24 and one is 17.
Oh, wow. So one is still in school.
Yes. He's going into his senior year. Yes.
So tell me, what are your concerns for the fall?
I just want the best learning experience for my son, however that's going to be. If he works better online, then I want him to do that. If he feels he'll work better being in the classroom, having a one-on-one attention with the teacher, then I would prefer him to do that. But I know that the school will put safety precautions in place. And of course, making sure that he follows those things, because even if you're not sick, you don't want to impact someone else's life who may have an underlying health condition or whatever. And the unfortunate part of it is people being asymptomatic and not showing any signs of the symptoms. That's just, oh my gosh, it's so alarming. It can be. And I just try to keep my stress levels balanced. Yes.
But so have you heard anything with Canton Public Schools? Have you guys gotten any literature about what's going on yet?
Well, my son actually goes to school in a different district, and so they have a choice of whether they're going to go in or not. I did talk to my friend who's a part of the administration for Canton City Schools, and at this time they have it by grade level as far as who will actually go to the building and how many days a week, and then whatever the choice may be in regards to the online courses. So again, it's a very important decisions that families will have to make, with each other, because ultimately the families have to provide the logistics of the situation. If they have to take their child to school, pick them up. And then when you have more than one child in the household and they go to they're in different grade levels and different school buildings, all of that can be impacting the family's decision. So I think it's important to have a little family meeting and discuss these things and really take into account how your child best learns, and I think having the time of working at home and trying out this online process, it helps some families to know and understand what may work better for their student if some students were able to do better online.
It's funny because you look at like the teachers. I'm concerned about the staff. We have staff that's maybe have upper respiratory issues. They have some kind of health issues, and if we have one student that comes through and that he or she may have it, then, I mean, how is it that the teacher, can we afford to go home for 14 days and
Right.
quarantine? Like, it's just, so I totally am concerned and worried and hoping that maybe we can just do it from home and see how that works, at least for the first few months, and see
Yes.
how the numbers, fluctuate and see where we're at.
Yeah.
Ohio's not banned. I don't think Ohio's a banned area yet.
Banned in terms of what?
Banned in returns of, in the terms of, like, even just traveling in and out. Like, I guess when I hear the word ban, I think that they're more of a risk.
Yeah. Right now, we just have the statewide mask mandate, but as far as traveling, no, we're not. It's just a matter of other states are allowing people from other states to come in. I don't think we've stopped people from coming in from other states, but it just makes it difficult because, with open borders, if you will, between states, between cities, and cities having different restrictions and requirements, and even just locally, before the statewide mask mandate, some restaurants requiring it, some not, going to the grocery store, some people wearing them. So I appreciate the statewide mandate in that we have to, once we go into a public place, put the mask on. And it's just for the safety of not only yourself, but others. And I truly appreciate your, thinking about the teachers and the staff, because that's important as well. Everybody who has to go into that building, all the workers. And we just, it's just a difficult situation. And we just really have to think about health first and what can be best. And I saw even on online, Facebook, a Black man, he might've been of African descent, but he created like a virtual classroom. You see all of the students, and the teacher is there talking. It's kind of like, like when you see on TV and it's like the FBI room and they have all those different TVs.
Yes.
Kids are on there. Or like a Zoom conference call where you could see everyone at the same time. But what we have to make sure is that students have access to Wi-Fi, because some families live in areas where they don't have access for Wi-Fi or can't afford it. And I know some school districts like the city, Canton City Schools, as well as the city of Canton, are working on like creating hotspots and different services so that the students can have access within their households for that. And then having the devices, again, with multiple children in one household, that each would have the device that he or she needs in order to do their work.
Right. And it's funny, I'm glad you said that. For the viewers, for the fall, I know at least in our area, Spectrum was definitely helping parents out. So if that's a concern, make sure you contact Spectrum and see what you can have connected with your house. I think it was free, if I'm correct.
They need to continue that, not just make it like a temporary situation. All of the AT&T, anyone that's in whatever particular area needs to really step up. They receive a lot of money. I was just on the phone with AT&T before I got on with you because my TV is not working. I'm like, look, I pay a lot of money every month and I don't even watch that much television. So once I do sit down and want to relax and watch it, I want this mug to work.
You want it to work.
And they have the money, or they need to make it available, because this is a critical time, a crisis that we're in, and our students should be like number one. I'm sure they have, community service dollars that they can use to make sure that our students have access to the online services that they need. And
we already know that the state fund each child. So, I'm just saying, even with that, the state funds each child. So these kids, those dollars that's not being used inside of the building should be used to help make sure these kids get the things that they need. While they're home. But I want to switch it up because you are out here trailblazing, and you have a book, right? Yeah. So talk to us. Let us know what's the name of your book. And
sure. My book is called #Driven. It's a motivational memoir, and I use it as a resource for families and friends that have a loved one living with severe mental illness. So I really go into my life's journey with my mother, who was diagnosed with severe mental illness, manic depression, paranoid schizophrenia when I was about 14 years old. And I estimate the time frame, I was about 14 when she was diagnosed. By 15, she left me in Houston, Texas, and came back to Ohio. And by the time I was 16, she had attacked me, and that's when I was in the court system. And by that time, I was attending my 14th school, living in the third state. I lived in California, Texas, and in Ohio. And most recently, I was challenged to determine how many times I moved. I would just conclude that it was like 8 different households that I lived in. But when counting, I have lived in, I had moved at least 21 times before even going to college. But I do thank God for the opportunity to go to school. And I had a teacher in high school that encouraged me to write about what she called undesirable circumstances. She knew about my life more than I did at the time. And she encouraged me to write about those things when I filled out scholarship applications and essays and college essays and things of that nature. And from that 2-word phrase, undesirable circumstances, I created my life's motto, which is on the back of my bookmark.
Wow.
And it says, don't allow undesirable circumstances, I know you probably can't see that, to be excuses for you to fail, but allow them to be reasons for you to excel. And I share that because there are so many of our children who are living in households where there are unconscionable things that happen, from domestic violence to murder to drug raids to seeing their parents or whoever they're living with being strung out on drugs. And a lot of those things I experienced. One of the scariest things I experienced in my life was a drug raid, and it was just scary. And I think about these different situations where people are thought because they're on their cell phone that it's a weapon and they end up dead. And I, at that time in the 80s, had my Walkman that could have been, looked at or thought to be something other than what it was. But again, I thank God that I'm here to share my story. But a lot of our children are dealing with the trauma related to their childhood experiences. I now know are called adverse child experience, that then they become adults, and how have they learned to cope and deal with these things? Mental health is something that's very important. And unfortunately, in our community, we don't want to talk about mental illness, especially severe mental illness like schizophrenia, like bipolar, but for sure, just not mental illness at all. And whether we want to believe it or not, individuals are experiencing at a rate of like 1 in 5 for any mental illness, and 1 in 25 for a severe mental illness like bipolar and schizophrenia.
I have a question. Depression. Would that be under mental illness? Or, how is that? I asked that because I remember when one of the most traumatic things happened to me, of course, is when I was charged, and then I ended up going to jail, and then my dad died in jail, and we had never been in trouble before. That was traumatic. Yeah. And I went through a deep, dark depression. And I always wondered, was that a form of mental illness? I don't know. So I'm just asking you.
Yeah, absolutely. There's over 200 recognized mental disorders. And it's, from my continued research, it's like a level of severity. So any one of us can experience depression. We have experiences like divorce or loss of a job, a relationship that can cause us to be depressed. But then how severe is that depression becoming, to the point where you may need medication, need professional treatment, because you can't get out of the bed and it's been 2 weeks. You're not interacting with family and friends after 2 weeks, and not eating right, or maybe you eating too much, or maybe you starting to rely on alcohol or drugs. So I strongly encourage people that once they are starting to get out of their norm of life, and right now this pandemic, I'm sure a lot of people are experiencing levels of depression they've never experienced before. But whenever they are feeling that way for a period of time, let's say about 2 weeks, you should start reaching out for resources, talking to someone just to have an assessment done, and making sure you're taking care of yourself. Our mental health is a part of our physical health. And it's important for us, especially in the Black community, to, let go of the taboo nature of talking about mental illness. forget about the stigma. We can't afford to be ashamed and embarrassed about mental health issues and concerns. Because while 41 to 43% of US adults just last year, may experience a mental health disorder and receive professional treatment, 41 to 43%, the African American community is only like 30%. We have to do better for ourselves, right? And especially Black women, we are so strong, and we have to portray this image of being, or fulfill the image of being strong, because it's automatically put on us a lot. And we don't have to do that. We are human just like everyone else. We can bear so much like everyone else, and we have to put ourselves first. It is not selfish. Self first is not selfish.
I love
And
that.
when we're not here, we won't be able to be here for other people. So it's important for us to think about that. And when it comes to our children, recognizing that, I mean, it's very alarming to me to hear that like 1 in 5 children between the ages of 2 and 8 can experience mental health issues. So with that statistic alone, I strongly encourage people, and even before knowing that statistic, but strongly encourage people to ride along with their child's annual physical exams each year, that they also ask their pediatrician for a mental health assessment. It doesn't mean that you think your child has a mental illness or mental health concerns, but you want them to be healthy overall, right? So just like you're taking them to that annual physical, you're not doing that just because they're sick. You're doing that because you're checking out their body, making sure they're growing and developing as they should for their age, weighing what they should. And then if they're not, or if there are concerns, the pediatrician is giving you suggestions on what you can do to help your child. They might need more sleep, need more water. Well, if you do the mental health assessment, that can help to determine if there might be issues that your child is not talking to you about. A lot of them are experiencing bullying that unfortunately we have seen it on the news, has led Black children to suicide at very young ages, 9 and 10 years old. So we can't act like this is not in our community, because it is. And there are resources that are available to help us, free resources that we need to take advantage of.
Thank you for that. And I concur with everything you just said, because when it all happened to me, I had never been to like a psychiatrist or anyone, I just never had done that. I probably should have, but I had never done that. And then I know when that happened, I was like, okay, so I need to go and I need to talk to someone who is not going to be my friend, that's going to try to, I want to get someone who's not, it's going to be,
professional help.
Yes. And I was so happy that I did, and I always say, I always tell people, go get help, go talk to someone who you do not know, someone who's not going to be biased to you or biased to another situation. And it's going to help you, start to begin to heal. And another thing is writing. Like, you're an author. I always tell kids, look, write, journal your feelings, especially our children. Journal. I don't care if it's yours. No one's going to look at it to see if you got any run-on sentences and comma splices and all those things.
Right.
No, don't worry about that. This is all yours. It's personal, and you write how you feel, because one day you might end up writing a book.
Yes. I knew at 16 that I wanted to write a book. I didn't have anything written at that time, but just the experiences I had thus far, I knew I wanted to write one. And it was 30 years later, but from that time, taking notes. And I learned to appreciate journaling, because I used to think a lot of this self-care type stuff was a waste of time. Like, I'm too busy. I got stuff to do. I'm not sitting down journaling or deep breathing or meditating and all that kind of stuff. I got stuff to do. But my goodness, I have learned the value of all of those types of things, and just giving myself permission to just relax, to calm down, to just lay in my bed if that's what I'm going to do, and not have anything on my calendar. That's when I feel so fulfilled, when I don't have anything on my calendar. Whereas before, I just felt like I wasn't productive. I wasn't moving towards a goal if I wasn't doing something. And so I strongly encourage people to just chill out and take a break, write things out and just take things day by day, because it can be overwhelming, especially while we're in this time of uncertainty. You know, people not knowing where their next meal is coming from, people
Yes.
not knowing when they're going to work again, people not knowing whether they're going to get another stimulus check or another unemployment check. And it's, you know, some may have never experienced that before, but
Right.
there
That's
are
right.
resources. And I strongly encourage people, again, just like with mental health resources, not to be embarrassed or ashamed. That's why those organizations are there.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to ask you, you are an attorney. Can you, do you also do civil, like civil suits?
Well, actually, right now, I'm general counsel for a public housing authority. And interestingly enough, it's the same housing authority that I lived in as a child, public housing, you know, the
Oh, wow.
project. And now I'm the attorney for the organization. And so as far as civil work, I have done domestic relations cases, personal injury cases, but right now I'm general counsel. So a lot of that, I talked about the economic impact that COVID has had on households and just poverty in general. But I do prosecute the evictions for the housing authority. And right now we're on the moratorium. Well, it expired July 24th, but there's still additional time to try to help families to be able to pay their rent and catch up on back payments for the rent. And unfortunately, sometimes these evictions are based on criminal activity where, you know, we have to think of the safety of everyone in that housing project, not just that household, even though it may have children in it. So it's a complicated job because, you know, public housing is like the last resort for a lot of families, and to be evicted from public housing can be detrimental to their ability to having housing opportunities with private landlords or any other type of subsidized housing. So it's complicated, but I really do commend our staff for trying to work with the families in order to keep them in housing.
That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. Yeah, because they definitely, I mean, besides, like you said, the criminal part, regular families, you know, they need this more than ever now. I want to switch it because I want to ask you something that's pretty cool. So you've been on Sister Circle.
Yeah, that was right before it canceled, but that was a great experience. My first live television interview, and I talked about giving tips for the new year as far as self-care tips. So that self first is not selfish is one of the tips that I gave, as well as just being, like I indicated here, and having the opportunity to relax. But that was a great opportunity, and it was just great to be on set with those ladies. Everyone was very kind, all the producers and everybody really helped me relax and just enjoy the experience.
That is so awesome. Those ladies were awesome.
Yeah.
I wish I would have seen that. I would have been like, yeah, I
It's
know.
on YouTube. You can watch it.
Okay, I will.
Yep.
I will.
And I have it available on my website, CoreyEmpowers.com, as well as the Breakfast Club interview. It's on YouTube as well. So
How was that? The Breakfast Club. That's big time. How was that?
yeah, actually, that was awesome as well. I was scheduled to be in New York in March, and it was canceled because of the corona. You know, everything started getting shut down, especially in New York, because that was a hot spot. But we were able to do it online. So we had the Zoom, like we're doing here with you, a Zoom call, and the interview proceeded that way. And that's how they've been doing them now, you know, since we've been in this situation.
Right. How can people like reach out to you? Like, what social media outlets do you have? Or are you on LinkedIn? How can people?
Sure. Yes, I'm on LinkedIn under attorney Corey Minor Smith. Instagram is Corey Empowers, as well as Facebook, Corey Minor Smith and Corey Empowers. And I strongly encourage people to go to my website, Corey, COREY, empowers.com. And I have a mental health resource guide that's available now. People would just enter their email address and it will be sent to them. Also, I have this sheet that I created, the 5 essential keys to loving a loved one living with severe mental illness. And all of these things I've just kind of gathered over the years and trying to help my mom, my family, and I, and learning to rely on the resources and not to try to do all of this ourselves, because it can be a very complicated situation. And I just strongly encourage, just like it in my book, I encourage people to make sure that they stay in contact with the treatment team, knowing what the resources are in the community, because they change a lot. Also, number one, praying. Like, you just pray to get through this stuff, because it can be very, very complicated, especially when a person is not on their medication or untreated otherwise. And educate yourself about the illness, because what I just learned, and it's been over 30 years of dealing with this with my mother, but just learned this Mother's Day that my mom may never be who I expected her to be as a mother. And I had to learn that I'm going to have to accept and acknowledge the symptoms that are related to her illness, because they're not going to go away. Even if she's taking the medication, all of those symptoms are not going to go away. They still may present themselves. So I'm just encouraging people to have realistic expectations, and to try to be there for their loved one, because while they may resist you and whatnot, they need you. So please, you want more information, you can go to organizations like NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. You can text NAMI, N-A-M-I, to 741-741. Anyone who may feel like they want to do harm to themselves or someone else, or someone that's considering or thinking about suicide, please call 1-800-273-8255. And I touched on earlier, regarding domestic violence. We don't want to talk about it. People are ashamed of it, but people are living in these situations. Please call for help. 1-800-799-7233. But with that mental health resource guide that's available on my website, there are all kind of apps, blogs, organizations like the B.L. Henson Foundation. Many of you know Taraji P. Henson. She started a mental health organization in the name of her father, Brandon Marshall. He's a former NFL player who was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. He started a foundation to help erase the stigma and provide opportunities for mental health. And there's just so many organizations that are focused on the Black community or people of color being culturally competent and having those services available, because many times that's what's preventing us from seeking help. We don't think we could talk to someone like us.
Right. I have two questions, and I'm getting old because I don't want to forget them. One question is the age. Like, I read somewhere, and I might be completely wrong, that when people begin showing signs, it's a good percentage that it's a particular age time when they're, what is that?
About 50% will exhibit symptoms between the age of 14 and 24. But like I said, there are children, 1 out of 5 children could start exhibiting symptoms of mental health concerns between the age of 2 and 8. So there's all kind of statistics out there. And that's why I just suggest that people ride along with those physical exams each year for their child to just ask for the mental health assessment. Again, it doesn't mean your child has any mental illness or mental health concerns. You're taking a proactive approach, not waiting for the teacher to tell you that your child can't sit still through the whole class or is not paying attention during assignments and whatnot. You can be a proactive parent and be involved in the treatment and assessments of your child, and not just relying on the school, because unfortunately there have been situations where children are misdiagnosed. Additional funds can be received for educational services when they have a diagnosis. And I don't want to suggest that, school systems are abusing that, but we want to make sure as parents that we know what is going on with our child and not just relying on things that someone else tells us.
Absolutely. Facts.
Yeah.
That's facts right there. My second question, I wanted to know, okay, so we see so many of, especially our people with mental illness that may be homeless, they may be out in the streets. And so they're handled so horribly as far as with the police.
Yeah.
Is there anything you can talk about with that? Like, because I know it's been touched on in, on the news, but I think we need to really start looking, instead of just shooting, because someone's mentally ill, but go ahead, you got it.
Yes, I absolutely advocate for crisis intervention teams or whatever it may be called in a particular jurisdiction. But that's a group of trained, behavioral health care workers, as well as trained law enforcement officers that may go out on a call, that know how to de-escalate the situation that a person in crisis may have at that time, and know to take them to the hospital rather than to jail. It's about 40% of people who are living with severe mental illness that will encounter encounter or have some kind of criminal activity or law enforcement encounter. And it's important for those calls to be routed to the correct individuals that can address that type of situation. Unfortunately, they may not know that the person is having a mental health crisis. So there are different efforts in different communities that to address that, you know, who's going out on the call. And if there are officers that are going out, that they are crisis intervention trained, because they know the likelihood of what is going on with the person, and knowing ultimately to take them to the hospital rather than to jail.
To jail. That's okay. Yeah, because I have been noticing in different states they are saying that that instead of just having, like you said, a regular police officer go out, they're trying to see what kind of, you know, how can we. So that's beautiful that you just said that. You said it so wonderfully. I don't want to botch all that up. Okay.
Yes.
I was on my way to messing that all up. No, you said it perfect.
Right.
Oh my gosh, I just appreciate you coming on so much. Before I go, I just want to tell my viewers, people who tune in, you know, I just want to always say thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in with the National Parents Union. You can do anything you want to do, and you come in and you listen in and you hear our conversations and what we're talking about, even if it's for 5, 10, 15 minutes, I don't know, but whatever it is. We are so humble. We really, really appreciate the people that view National Parents Union, and especially my little half an hour show, The Parent Effect. I really, really appreciate it. So thank you so much. I want you back on real soon, actually. Maybe we can do this again within a month.
Yes. Oh, and let's just say that, you know, we're closing out July, and July is National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. It is named in honor of Bebe Moore Campbell, who was a 3-time New York Times bestselling author, but more importantly, a mother of a child who lives with bipolar. Some of you may recall her, Maya Campbell. She used to be on the show back in the early 90s, In the House, with
Yes.
LL Cool J and Debbie Allen. She was the daughter on that show. Her mother, a very successful writer, she used her celebrity status to advocate for mental health and wellness, especially in the Black community. Her book, 72-Hour Hold, is an authentic, it just so accurately describes the life, even though it's a fictional novel, of a family trying to navigate through the behavioral healthcare system and help their loved one, as well as a children's book. Because again, we can't leave the children out and act like they don't observe and witness this stuff. You know, I was younger, much younger, when my mom started showing signs. We just didn't know that that's what it was until it became where it had to be something wasn't right. You know what I'm saying? But there are so many movies that depict. Oh, let me tell you, the children's book is called Sometimes My Mommy Gets Angry. So it's a little girl who relies on her grandmother to help her navigate through this life of living with her mother who has bipolar. And a lot of our children are in this situation. So the more we advocate, and I'll just leave you with my 3 strategy approach to this whole mental health thing. It sounds simple, but I say first to acknowledge, you have to acknowledge that mental illness is real, that, you know, our community is impacted by it. Accepting the symptoms that may be related to your loved one's illness, and advocate. We have to advocate for more funding, because the medication that has been out for like 30 to 40 years. It's time for more research to know what can help our individuals, our loved ones better, right? And for research, for funding, and for treatment, and especially the need to increase the pay wages for people who work in the behavioral healthcare system. There's a high turnover rate. And I believe it's a lot because of the pay. And some of these people are very passionate about helping this community, but they can't earn a living wage. So those are the things I ask people to join me in doing, advocating. Yeah,
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for coming on. God bless you.
For having me.
All right. Have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.